OJ Simpson didn't do it. Prove me wrong. Because the passing of Ron Goldman and Nicole Simpson captivated everybody in the country. It was the trial of the century. And at the center of it would be Hollywood actor and former NFL star OJ Simpson. Now the state would go all in this case, making the claim OJ Simpson was solely responsible for this crime. But with his dream team attorneys, they would cherry pick certain pieces of evidence along with pointing out various lies. And this famous clip right here.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
And with a verdict that shocked the country, OJ Simpson would be found not guilty. But what if the state missed the bigger picture here? What if he didn't commit these crimes, but he was actually there? Well, the new stories came out, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. And if an open conversation is something you prefer, then this is the place for you. Welcome to The Point, so let's talk about it.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
Now, the source of this story comes from the Dailymail, and it will be linked down in the description below. But at the center of this story is 62-year-old John Dutton. And he claims that he was a witness to this crime. OJ Simpson was there. But he also says 4 members of the Gambino crime family were the actual individuals who committed this act. And if you like what we're doing on this channel, hit that like button and leave a comment down below. Because according to John, he did talk to law enforcement very early on in this investigation. But when he found himself on his knees with a weapon pointed in his mouth and threats against him and his family, he decided he wasn't going to talk to anybody anymore. But before we can ask the question, was the state wrong? We first got to ask ourselves, do we believe what this guy's saying? And you do have a couple different approaches to take with it. Now on one side, of course, everybody's looking for their 15 minutes of fame. And this would be a story someone could sell for a large portion of money. And he makes the claim that he's talking about it right now because the vast majority of people involved with this crime have now passed away. And there are, of course, people who don't believe what he's saying whatsoever. And if you're one of those people, then this story's DOA from the get-go. But what if there were people that could validate what he's saying? And if you do believe him making the claim that OJ was the mastermind behind this whole crime, he was the one who orchestrated all this, then there's pieces of it that would make sense. Now, we have all heard a lot of theories surrounding this particular crime. Some people have said OJ's oldest son was the one who committed this crime, and OJ happened to be there because he was trying to protect his kid. Another theory circulating the internet was that an individual working on Nicole's home happened to be a budding SK, and he's the one that did it. And at this particular point, this just seems to be another story, so where are you at with it? Now, for any of y'all who don't believe any of this is plausible, is it unheard of for people within organized crime to participate in this type of act? Is that unbelievable? Because when you look at certain things, keep in mind, there was evidence to support OJ was there. But according to the defense, there wasn't enough to prove that he committed this act. Now, of course, individuals who believe that he 100% did this are blaming the fact that the jury wasn't very familiar with how DNA evidence works. People have made the case that if the jury was more informed about what DNA is, then the defense wouldn't have had a leg to stand on. But for those of y'all who always wondered, what if somebody else was involved? Does this not make sense? We are all aware at that time, OJ had the money to pay for something like this. He was a national name at that time. He was in movies, he was on TV shows, he was on commercials, and he was doing interviews. He was absolutely everywhere. Now, for everyone out here who believes this is plausible but needs somebody else to corroborate this, a high-profile Hollywood private investigator, Paul Baresi, has came out and said a very long time ago, early on in this case, he was sent to go talk to Mr. Dutton because he had also heard that Dutton was aware that OJ was at the crime scene and that other individuals were involved. Now, he goes on to say that John wouldn't talk to him and didn't want to talk to any reporters, and he hasn't talked to John until very recently after OJ Simpson had passed. So if people can validate what he's saying, did the state get this wrong? Did they make a huge error making the claim OJ Simpson was solely responsible for this act? Would it been more believable to say he orchestrated this whole event? Do you think that's something the jury could have got behind then and they just misplayed their hand? Or is this just another confusing piece of the puzzle and we'll never know for sure 100% who committed this act? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Let me know down in the comments below. Y'all be safe now.